This is LQB 185 Assessment Task 2, completed by Eleanor Kruger, Melanie Y, and Jasmine Butterworth. This here is Sally. Earlier today, Sally cut her finger when slicing oranges, but thankfully now she's okay, and the bleeding has completely stopped. This gratitude is due to a physiological process called hemostasis.
Hemostasis is a mechanism that prevents blood loss and hemorrhage after bleeding. Caused by endothelial damage, the process occurs in 3 stages: vasoconstriction, platelet plugs, and coagulation. When Sally first cut her finger, she damaged the endothelial cell of her blood vessel wall, initiating vasoconstriction. When there is injury, the damaged blood vessel decreases natural vasodilators in the blood, secreting extra endothelin -1. This is a peptide responsible for the positive regulation of vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction occurs as a way to prohibit blood loss, and it also gives access for platelets to adhere to subendothelial collagen, initiating the second phase of our hemostasis formula, platelet plug formation. When there is injury, platelets form together to adhere to the site of injury through differing receptors called glycoproteins. These allow platelets to stick to the walls of Sally's blood vessel, and this process is known as platelet adhesion. Once glued to the blood vessel, the platelets begin changing shape, releasing chemicals that call upon further platelets to come towards the damaged area. Now Sally's platelets are said to be activated. Once activated, additional platelets come, forming a loose plug and finalizing the step platelet aggregation. This is the main goal of primary hemostasis. However, this plug won't stop Sally's finger bleeding for long, and thus we need another substance for the formation of a clot. This is where secondary hemostasis occurs, and we see fibrin, which is an insoluble protein, form a meshwork around our plug, finally clotting Sally's blood. But first, we need to talk about where fibrin came from. In Sally's blood is a group of proteins called coagulation factors, and these are usually produced by the liver. When activated, these proteins set off a series of reactions called the coagulation cascade. There are 2 ways Sally's body can trigger the coagulation cascade. First is through a tissue factor known as collagen. Collagen is a subendothelial protein, meaning it would usually stay beneath the surface of Sally's blood vessel. However, when she cut herself, collagen became exposed, triggering the activation of one of her coagulating proteins. When one protein is activated, so is another, resulting in a waterfall-like cascade that produces another tissue factor, thromboplastin. This series of events is known as the extrinsic pathway of the coagulation cascade. When thromboplastin gets released into the blood, it activates its own set of coagulating factors, forming what we know as the intrinsic pathway of the coagulation cascade, and resulting in the tissue factor thrombin. Both pathways link up to what is known as the common pathway, and it is here at the end of our common pathway that we see thrombin turn the soluble plasma protein fibrinogen into long, sticky threads of insoluble fibrin. So now we have our sturdy plug with a fibrin mesh that we got through coagulation. However, too much coagulation activity permits the clot to grow much larger than it should. Luckily, we have 2 groups of the body's own naturally produced chemicals which help limit the size of a clot. The first group is known as coagulation inhibitors. When this group interferes with the reactions among clotting factors, fibrin is blocked and no new fibrin strands are available to hold additional cells to the clot, keeping clot growth to a minimum. The other way we see blood clots controlled is through fibrinolysis. Instead of blocking fibrin strands and stopping clot growth like we see coagulation inhibitors do, fibrinolysis occurs as plasminogen activators, triggering the destruction of fibrin strands that hold the clot together. Sally is so happy for the hemostasis process. Without it, these coagulation factors wouldn't be able to hold the plug, meaning Sally would experience hemorrhage, and if severe enough, she could potentially face death.